Hello everyone, I'm Enoch Tam from Bachelor University. My topic of today is free ecology in Hong Kong independent documentaries. I'll later explain which free ecology I'm addressing. But first of all, I would like to have a very brief review of the recent discussion of Hong Kong independent documentary. When we talk about Hong Kong independent documentary in recent years, we always think about those documentary about social activism and about the protests. For example, documentary about Wang Zifeng and documentary about, for example, the umbrella movement. We have Chen Ziyuan's yelling about the umbrella movement. We have Nora Lam, Lost in Frame, about Leung Tin-kei, another Hong Kong localist leader. So here I have a very brief review of very recent the recent development of Hong Kong social activism to recall our memory. So very brief, let me begin with 2010s, we have this movement we call 5 Constituency Referendum. The idea behind this movement is that actually these 5 guys stepped down from their let-go position and then to restart the election so that the people can express their view of whether they want to have the universal suffrage. So the social movement is basically about universal suffrage, and later we see the rise of another generation in the anti-moral and national education movement in 2012. It is more or less, we can regard this as an anti-nationalization, a movement for an anti-nationalization. And I think the movement, the demand for universal suffrage and the movement for the anti-nationalization actually can somehow conclude or sum up, the past 10 years, the social movement of the past 10 years in Hong Kong. The next one I want to mention is of course, 2014 umbrella movement, and basically have only one simple demand is also universal suffrage, and then later developed at the end of umbrella movement later developed into the 2016. Maybe it is less known by people outside Hong Kong, but it's also a very important movement. It's a fishball revolution in Mongkok in 2016, and then recently, of course, we all know that I think everyone knows that it's anti-extradition movement in 2019, and I'm not sure whether I can put down the year of 2020, whether it's end or not, we don't know. But let's just put down 2020 as its end point. But why I put up this series of movement, why I need to recall this a series of events, is because in the recent year, when we talk about Hong Kong independent documentary, we always refer to documentary about this movement. But actually, before this series of movement, Hong Kong has a pretty long tradition of another kind of social movement, which has been highly represented in local documentary, but very much less discussed or under discussed in international scholarship. So I want to bring this up. So what are they? So before or another type of social movement begins in the 2000s. Actually, what I refer to some social movement related to space, to memory, to community, and to land. Okay, one is in the 2006 and anti-Lei Dong Gai, Lei Dong Street redevelopment project movement. Okay, we all know that Lei Dong Street is a street related to those Reading banquet related business. in Wan Zai, and then some people fight for their interests and fight for some compensation, but the government just don't just ignore them, and then they remove the whole street, and then later built into the Nidong Avenue. It is now how it's not in nowadays. Okay, so this first movement I want to mention, and then later around the same time, and this is a more important preservation movement in Hong Kong in 2006 and 2007 is the preservation movement of Ferry and Queen's Piers. I think many Hong Kong people still have memory about this. And they occupy, some activists occupy the Ferries and later the Queen's Piers and want to preserve these two heritage or these two of, they call this public space. Later I will return to this notion again. And of course some attack them are too nostalgic, okay, too colonialism and something like that, but they have another explanation and understanding of why they occupy and why they defend or why they want to preserve this piece of land, this piece of architecture. Okay, so it's about the discussion of space and memory, and also the democratic use of this space. And later, nowadays it become AIA Vitality Park. You have a large, amusement park there. So many people from foreign people come to Hong Kong and visit this Vitality Park. But before that, we have the Ferry and the Queen's Pier. And later, this group of people, they call them post-80s or local action activist group, and then they also participate in later years, 2009 and 10's anti-Hong Kong Express Way Link 反高鐵. And at the same time also, they not only anti this express rail link, but they want to preserve a village we call Choi Yuen, this village. And the protests actually happened at the same time. And so we can see that, some kind of anti-globalization or anti-nationalization or anti-capitalist use of resources or land, and in parallel to, farming, agricultural practices, and you can see the connection here. And I think the next protest or movement is one can see a more clearer picture in the next. First of all, let me mention nowadays it looks like this in the current station of Express Railway Link. And the next one is Occupy Central, not the one promoted by Professor Tai. It is earlier, not the Occupy Central with Love and Peace, but Occupy Central in the 2011 and 12 is echo to the Occupy Wall Street and anti-capitalist movement. And then they occupy the headquarters of HSBC of Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank Corporation in Admiralty. Okay, so this is how it looked at that time, and this is how it looks in recent time, in very recent new renovation of the headquarters in Central. So why I want to list this out, why I want to mention all these, social movement, because I can discover in this social movement that we have what I call the three ecologies. I can see in this documentary. I have in the abstract mentioned that the ecology of first the urban space, in the first wave of preserving those public space, the new idea of public space, and then later develop into the ecology of agricultural land, and then some activists go to the rural area to practice agriculture, and then finally to come to the ecology of the rural community. Especially, I want to focus on 2 documentaries about some local folk song. So how folk song, these human cultural practices, can relate to the natural environment, the nature, and the change of climates, or something like that. So let's begin with this ecology. And let's begin with the first one, the ecology of urban space. I don't think I have much time to go into very detail of the analysis of those documentaries, but what I want to mention here is how the idea of space, land, and those ideas about the rural area change, and how this changing idea can be reflected in those documentaries. Okay, before the 2006, before those preservation movement in 2006 about Tung Street and about Star Ferries and Queen's Ferries movement, before that, Hong Kong people just regard a piece of land as some standing reserve. Just like Winnie just mentioned in China, that we got water as some standing reserve. A resource system can build value, economic value, of course, and then we always bounded by this ideology. We learned that from very early time in our primary school that Hong Kong is have very limited land resources, and we have too many people, so that we need to make use of the lands to build houses, to build other architecture, to make use of the lands, and then we can stay healthy, wealthy in this piece of land. But this ideology actually works for years, but in around 2005 and 6, people try to question this ideology and try to reconnect to the space around them. So we have these 2 social movements, which actually illustrate how younger generation to rethink the relationship between themselves and the urban space, and especially the second one, the preservation movement. They occupy the Star Ferry, and then what they advocate in this movement is that 2, and I think I can summarize as 2 main concern or main demands in this movement. Is that the first one is the democratic urban planning. So not only those capitalists or those land proprietors or government to decide whether what kind of architecture should be built or planned there, but need to open up the discussion to the public, and public can have their opinion, and then we can draw the conclusion together. So they demand, the first demand of this movement is democratic urban planning. But and the second they claim to make the space public again, and besides this democratic urban planning, they also in a lot of the interview they also expressed that they want to reconstruct the local identity through the history of space. They don't see this space. Okay, some people say that this piece of space is especially Queen's Piers is a place where the Queen, when she come to Hong Kong, she will get aboard in this pier. Also, it is a symbol of colonialism, but they don't take this space with this discourse. They want to reconstruct a new local identity. They want to retell the story that in this space actually have other things happen. For example, the hunger strike. For example, other kind of protests. So that we construct the local history, and then they reconstruct the local identity. So what documentary we have for this? I want to skip this. For these 2 movements is first Lam Sam. The year after, immediately after the movement, 2008, Lam Sam had a documentary, Queen's Pier. He recorded a lot of daily leisure activities, daily practice. For example, fishing. I mean, during the protest, people reading newspaper there, fishing, and then some Philippine helpers go there for Sunday leisure time, and something like that. Okay, so he tried to reconfigure this space into a space for daily activities. Okay, and then another documentary I have here is this one, 路盡業, Days After Coming. This one is not about the preservation for Star Ferry, but about the occupied central. Actually, why I mentioned this documentary, because it extends the discussion of using space or using or make the space public again. This line of discussion extend it from previous social movement to the occupied central. And in the later part of this documentary, he spent a lot of time to document how the young people there. I only have 5 minutes left, but I still have 2 other points to go. But anyway, in this documentary, we can see how they reorganize the space and how they rethink their relationship to Hong Kong, and especially not only to the public space, but their relationship to their work, how they live, okay, how they earn, and how they exchange, and then they have kind of alternative, practices in here. But in this documentary, we can see the limit of this kind of make the space public again is that they cannot reproduce. So they need to how can they earn money or earn their living only by occupation? They cannot do this. So I think the post-80s generation begins to reflect on this matter. So later, some of them go back to the rural area and do farming, so they can reproduce their living from the land. So the second ecology in recent Hong Kong documentary, I would say, is a documentary of agricultural land. Because I don't have much time, I want to just want to highlight the point of, so if the previous wave is to make the space public again, this wave is to make the land productive or reproductive again. The land is no longer a standing reserve for property building, but we know the value of the land. We can make use of the land. We can dwell in the land, and then on the one hand, when they dwell in the land, the people can reflect on their own life and their relationship with the capitalism, with the neoliberalism. And on the other hand, the land can be a network, of production, consumption, and distribution. The documentary I want to mention here, 2 documentaries about the agriculture is, I think Winnie has written a very good article on these 2 documentaries. One is Chen Holun, The Way of Paddy, and the other one is Chen Holun again, and 收割開路, Open Road After Harvest. He spent years of time, 3 to 4 years, to make these 2 documentaries to see how these activists turned into farmers, and how they dwell in the land, and how they see the productive power and value in the land, and how they again produce the food in the lands, and then we turn this into the network of production, consumption, and distribution. The last ecology I want to mention here is the ecology of rural community. And I think it's also a consequence of, the first wave of preservation movement when they, have a new idea of space or new idea or new relation. They build up a new relationship between themselves and the city. And then they later find that, okay, we have so much treasure, history, and cultural practices in the rural area. So let's go back to the rural area to document this kind of cultural practice. What are those cultural practices? One is the 圍頭話 folk song in Lantau village, and another documentary is about the folk song from the fishermen and 水上人 the folk song. So I want to mention 馬之行 the ballet on the shore, 岸上漁歌, and then 陳浩倫 again, 陳浩倫 and Choi lies rhymes of 水口婆婆的山歌. I don't have time to play the YouTube. This YouTube has the link here show how the song look like, but I don't have time to play it. But what I want to mention is that why they have this kind of drive to do these two documentary is that they can see I can sense the very deep fear of extinction and the deep anxiety of disappearance of Hong Kong local identity and Hong Kong culture. But and then they want to document these two kind of song that they want to preserve. Again, but this time not the space, not the land, but some cultural practice. But why I include these two documentaries here and relate it to the discussion of ecology, because these two type of song highly related to the lyrics of the song is about environment, it's about the change of climate, and it's about how birds fight from July to December, something like that. So here we can see the interconnectedness between human being and nature and cultural practice, and also the wave of Hong Kong local social movement from the 2006 to the 2010s, something like that. Okay, so I have to conclude my presentation. So we have these three. I propose free ecology in recent Hong Kong independent documentary. We have the ecology of urban space. We want to redefine the space. We want to make the space public again. And then we have the ecology of land. Okay, we habitating the land again to make the land productive or reproductive again. And lastly, we have the ecology of rural community. So we can see in the lyrics the connection between or interconnectedness between the nature and culture and human activities. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much.